Alright, so here we go with our sixth part of our video lecture for chapter 12, talking about the post classical era of Europe. So we left off with the end of the Crusades, right? Roughly ends in the 1200s. And in that time period, which is after, the 1000s, the second half of the post classical era, we see that Europe is going to undergo massive transformations, massive changes, right? So from the 1000s, the 1100s, 1200s, all the way into the 1400s. And the Crusades is often credited as the catalyst, as the source of all these changes, because it kind of the opens up Europe to the exposes Europe to the worlds of the East, like China and India, but also of the Islamic world, the Muslim world. And the first kind of like evidence of this is through commerce, right? Through trade, through wealth. And what we're going to see is the growth of many cities, Florence being one of them, that are going to become trade centers in Europe, right? And this is new because remember in the Dark Ages, right, from roughly the 500s, 600s, all the way to the thousands, there wasn't all that much trade or any at all in medieval Europe. So part of this is the Dark Ages comes to an end, and the kings are able to establish enough authority and power to create political stability, and which allows merchants to travel, right? And the goods and the luxury goods that the Crusaders brought back home to Europe after their experiences in the Middle East kind of spurs this desire, this demand for the luxury goods, right, from the Far East, from India, from China, from the Middle East. And this is the time frame, right, the 1200s, 1300s, where we're going to see the travels of Marco Polo, right, where the Venetian merchant, right, from Venice, from Italy, Marco Polo, he's going to travel across the Silk Road at the time where the Mongols are going to rule the entirety of the Central Asian or most of the Asian continent, and they're going to have control of the Silk Road. So political stability in Europe will allow them to connect to faraway places, and people like Marco Polo are going to be able to travel. Now, the first region of Europe that kind of develops their economy and develops their commerce, develops their trade, is going to be Italy. So we're going to see the creation of city-states in Italy during this time. The main ones being Florence, right here in northern Italy, Venice, Milan, and Genoa, right? And notice almost all of them, they're going to be on the coast, right? And a lot of the wealth came from the fact that they were hired to, transport the Crusaders across the Mediterranean Sea. And with the decline of the Byzantine Empire out of Europe, and with its slow decline, we're going to see that Italy will step up as being a major, naval power in the Mediterranean once again, a merchant naval power. Again, here we see a famous picture of Venice. There's also going to be the Papal States. That's part of. It's going to be in uh, central Italy, and that's going to be ruled by the Pope. It's called the Papal State because it's ruled by the Pope. All right. At the same time as Europe is opening, establishing itself politically and opening up its borders to trade once again, we're gonna see the ideas that we've seen elsewhere gonna slowly make its way into Europe. So the Europeans are going to open up banks, right? Which is, an idea that came from the Middle East. They're gonna open up letters of credit, like checks and stuff, which again is ideas that came from elsewhere. One of the new things they came up with though is something called joint business partnerships. All right, so basically the idea is that one person probably won't have enough wealth, enough resources, enough capital or cash to be able to sponsor like a ship and pay for a voyage across the Mediterranean for trade purposes, right? But if you get a group of investors to join together, then they can all put money forth, and they can all pay for a ship and pay for the captain and the crew. And if that ship is able to return with spices and silk and other stuff, they can make a nice profit. And it's also a good thing in the sense that if the ship doesn't make it, like it sinks or it's attacked by pirates or whatever, then you're not going to lose your entire investment. Right? You're not going to lose your whole fortune, your whole life savings, because you're only going to invest a part of it. So these ideas in Europe, right, these new techniques will allow them to increase trade, allow them to increase um, the growth of their businesses. With the changes, business, economic changes, and political changes, we're going to see social changes, right? So we're going to see the increased population in Europe. We're going to see increased urbanization, right? These trade cities of Italy and other places are going to slowly grow bigger and bigger. Places like London and Paris, Venice and Genoa, Moscow and Novgorod, which is in Russia. And we're going to see the growth of cities, towns into cities, and these cities are going to be populated by merchants and artisans. Now, of course, the growth of population is a result of the growth of agricultural productivity, and we're going to see another change in agriculture. So, for example, the Europeans are going to work harder to clear their forests, right, in order to put more land under cultivation. They're going to use something called field rotation, right, or crop rotation, where every year they rotate what it is that they're growing in their land, right? And one of the part of it is that they use a land called or a thing called fallow, which means that for a year they allow that part of the land to rest, to regenerate, to recuperate its nutrients that otherwise the crops will suck up. So by using this practice, they're going to be able to maximize the amount of food that they can produce. They're also going to start incorporating new technologies that came from Asia, right? Stuff like the horse collar and horseshoes, right? And this will allow the horses to, or the people to maximize the horsepower and increase the animal labor. In addition to all these kind of like agricultural techniques stuff, we're gonna see new crops being added to their diets and to their food. Food supply stuff like citrus, which originally came from India, stuff like rice, which came all the way from China, and beans, right? And so it's gonna like be a more varied diet and allow the population of Europe to slowly and surely grow. So we have new crops. We have the horse collar you see there, and all these changes, right? Agricultural and economic and social changes, right? It starts occurring in the second half of the post-classical era, right? In Europe, 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, and so on. All right, so we'll talk about the Hanseatic League next time.